The office was quiet. Too quiet for DC even at night. The city pulsed like a second heart. Sirens echoing through corridors of power. Lights flickering like the nervous system of democracy. But here, in this corner office on Capitol Hill, the silence was heavy, dense, as if it were waiting for something to erupt. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat alone, the glow of her desk lamp casting a warm halo around her face. Her eyes didn't move. They were fixed on the screen of her encrypted laptop, frozen not by confusion, but by the weight of what stared back at her. The file had come 30 minutes ago through Proton Mail, with the subject line, "This never made it to trial." No name, no trace. Just a chain of scrambled IPs and a zip folder titled, Fed_Scano02. She had almost deleted it, now it was open in front of her. A grainy, black and white scan, the kind that still smelled like a government photocopier, even in digital form. Redacted lines bled across the page like surgical scars. But two words floated above the blackout, undocumented meeting. Below it, a date, June 15th, 2002, the location, private estate, Palm Beach, attendees, Jeffrey Epstein. Donald J. Trump, female minor, name withheld, beneath it all, subject has since gone missing. No official record filed. Jasmine didn't blink. Her fingers curled under the desk. Her jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She was used to games. Used to. Smears, setups, edited clips, and legal gray zones. But this wasn't gray. This was radioactive. She clicked again. A second page. Handwritten notes, possibly from a federal investigator, the kind that weren't supposed to survive redaction. Witness stated Trump was alone with subject for 23 minutes. No staff present. Surveillance camera malfunctioned. Epstein confirmed presence but claimed nothing happened. Then a final line, circled in pen. Subject disappeared 3 months later. No follow-up permitted by DOJ, the cursor blinked. Her heartbeat matched it, one thud at a time. She leaned back in her chair. The city was still out there, humming in the background, cars, choppers, shouting drunks. But she heard none of it. In this moment she saw the entire domino line falling, the hearings, the defenses, the smear campaigns, the fury, the lies. And buried underneath it all, a teenage girl no one followed up on. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then placed it back down. Truth had just knocked. Now the question was, who else would hear it when she opened the door? And what would it cost to speak it aloud? Jasmine Crockett didn't sleep that night. She sat in her kitchen at 3:14 a.m., a chipped mug of black coffee between her hands and her eyes, scanning legal texts on her iPad. Statutes, procedural loopholes, historical committee precedent, all the gears that made congressional power grind forward or seize in place. She knew one thing. If she didn't act quickly, this file would disappear just like the girl in it. By morning, her office had drafted a formal letter requesting an emergency Judiciary Committee hearing under Rule 14, citing new evidence relevant to ongoing investigations regarding Epstein's network and possible political protections within an hour of submitting it. The machine roared to life. "You're opening a door this country can't afford to walk through, Jasmine." That was Representative Matheson, GOP, Mississippi, as he cornered her in the hallway outside her office. His voice was low but hard, like gravel beneath polished shoes. Jasmine met his stare. "Then maybe we should ask why the floor is so dirty." That was the beginning of the panic. Calls from Republican leadership surged into the committee chairs. Office, they argued, timing, public interest, decorum, anything but the content of the file. Senator Grayson from Texas called it a baseless distraction from real legislative priorities. The White House, though quiet publicly, sent internal legal memos warning that the documents could have been foreign forged. Fox News ran their first segment by noon. Congresswoman Crockett's desperate stunt, Epstein files as a political weapon. But the fire had already caught wind. CNN ran a red banner across its screen. Breaking. Congresswoman calls for emergency hearing on Trump-Epstein connection. By sundown, Twitter was drowning in it. # Crockett Files began trending. Activists, survivors, QAnon defectors and political junkies all scrambled for proof. One woman posted, "My sister disappeared in 2002 near Palm Beach. I was 12. We never got answers." Inside the Capitol, the silence became hostile. Jasmine's colleagues looked at her differently now, some with admiration, others with dread. Her chief of staff, Marcus, leaned against her doorframe that night and said softly, "They're not gonna let this happen, Jazz. They'll find a reason to block it." She turned in her chair. Her voice was quiet but carved from stone. "Then we make it impossible to block. We make it so loud they'd rather risk their own seats than shut it down." The next morning she walked into the press gallery. Hair sharp, voice ready. She held up the first page of the file, blurred out except for 3 words: Trump, Epstein, minor. "Some truths," she began, "don't care about political timing. They just need to be spoken before silence becomes permission." The room erupted in flashbulbs. Outside, the first protest signs were already going up. And somewhere in the shadows of power, someone was calling in a favor to shut her down. The box arrived unmarked, delivered to her Houston district office in the early hours of a gray Wednesday morning. At first glance, it looked like any other package, brown, square, taped clean. But the staffer who opened it immediately froze. No note. No paperwork. Just one item inside, a blood-soaked MAGA hat. The crimson stain had dried to a dark, almost black crust across the white lettering. "Make America Great Again Now," a threat. An unspoken warning. Jasmine stood over it moments later, her fists clenched so tightly her nails bit into her palms. No one said a word. Marcus, normally composed, whispered through gritted teeth, "We need to go public. Let the FBI know." Jasmine shook her head, staring at the hat like it was a relic from a darker century. "That's what they want. They want me scared. They want me silenced." But later that night, in the privacy of her hotel suite in D.C., she sat on the floor, legs crossed, scrolling through her inbox. Hundreds of emails, support, hatred, threats. One simply read, "If you bring this to trial, we'll bring you to God." She shut her laptop and exhaled slowly, a tremor in her breath she didn't want to admit. She wasn't naive. Jasmine had faced the beast before: racially coded attacks, online mobs, gerrymandered death wishes masked as voter suppression. But this was different. This was a mob unshackled. A cult that had moved past loyalty into something darker, worship and war. At sunrise, she walked alone through the Capitol reflecting pool, the dome glowing gold behind her like a judge watching from the heavens. She remembered what her grandmother told her at age 15, during a protest in Dallas: "The closer you get to the fire, the more the shadows want to grab you." By the afternoon, Fox News was calling her mentally unstable, and Rep. Harkins publicly accused her of fabricating evidence to boost her political profile, so she returned fire. But not with anger. With law. She went live on Instagram, dressed in a plain navy suit, no makeup, no filters. Just her voice and the truth. "This is what they want," she said calmly. "They want to terrify us into thinking justice is dangerous. That asking questions is treason. That unsealing buried crimes is somehow un-American. But let me be very clear, if silence keeps us safe, then truth must be dangerous. And I choose the danger." The video went viral in minutes. The comments section exploded. Some called her a hero, others a liar. But every viewer, friend or foe, felt one thing in their gut. Jasmine wasn't backing down. She was just getting started. The courtroom smelled like cold marble and old fear. Daylight leaked through the tall windows of the Judiciary Subcommittee's chamber as the clock struck 9 a.m. sharp, every seat in the gallery was filled: lobbyists, reporters, clerks, dogs. Outside, protesters pushed against barricades, holding signs that either read, "Unseal the files" or "Stop the witch hunt." But inside, the battle wasn't being fought with fists or chants. It was being waged with law. The center of it all sat Jasmine Crockett, poised, unreadable, a single manila folder at her side. Her eyes were fixed not on the audience or even the committee chair, but on the man who had just taken his seat at the defense table, Judge Martin Bledsoe, former federal circuit judge, now legal counsel for Donald J. Trump. He was calm, war Arrogance like a well-fitted coat, Madam Chair, Bledsoe said as he stood, his southern drawl deliberate, oily. We respectfully move to block any further discussion or release of materials pertaining to the alleged Epstein file under executive privilege. The courtroom murmured. Jasmine tilted her head, hands still clasped on the table in front of her. Bledsoe continued. These materials fall under protected intelligence protocols. Their disclosure not only undermines national security but also sets a dangerous precedent, allowing partisan actors to weaponize sealed intelligence for political theater. Jasmine stood slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to, Mr. Bledsoe, she began. You're asking this chamber to believe that a document detailing a missing child, a known trafficker, and a former president should remain secret, because telling the truth is a dangerous precedent? She took one deliberate step forward. Let me be clear, the danger isn't in disclosure. The danger is in what happens when people believe they're untouchable. When the law becomes a shield for power instead of a sword for justice, Bledsoe smirked. Congresswoman, the rule of law doesn't bend for trauma. Jasmine leaned in slightly, her voice soft. No, Judge, it bends for privilege, that's the difference. The room froze. The committee chair tried to strike a balance. A recess was called. Cameras clicked. The country split further, watching. Live, that night, MSNBC called the hearing a constitutional crisis in real time. Fox News doubled down, airing 2 straight hours titled Jasmine Crockett, the left's new weapon of mass distraction. But it didn't matter. In private, Jasmine met with her legal team and began drafting the next move. A congressional subpoena for all unsealed Epstein correspondence tied to the Secret Service and Mar-a-Lago visitor logs. The game wasn't about reaction anymore. It was about pressure, and Jasmine Crockett was about to push until something cracked. The rot didn't scream. It whispered. Day one of the emergency hearing arrived under an overcast sky, the Capitol draped in gray like a warning. Inside the Judiciary Chamber, the temperature had dropped. Not physically, but in the way bodies moved, stiffer, more cautious. The air smelled like stale coffee and something more primal, anticipation. Jasmine Crockett walked in without a smile. Her navy suit was razor-sharp, her afro pinned with understated defiance. In her hand, the subpoena draft. In her mind, the map she knew Trump's team would try to walk her into, and she was ready to burn that map. Judge Bledsoe sat poised at the defense table, surrounded by a cadre of attorneys, clerks, and media consultants. Their strategy was obvious from the first gavel strike: stall, distract, derail. Point of order. Bledsoe interrupted within the first 2 minutes. The chair's jurisdiction here exceeds its constitutional boundaries. This hearing violates both the Presidential Records Act and the protective scope of executive privilege. Jasmine countered with precedent. Nixon v. Administrator of General Services, 1977. The court had ruled that even a president's records weren't immune from public accountability in the interest of justice, but it didn't matter. The trap was procedural, motion after motion, one to dismiss, one to delay, one to question the origin of the files. Bledsoe was orchestrating a slow death, one where legal fog would choke public outrage into apathy. Jasmine stayed silent longer than expected, watching, letting it unfold. She knew cameras were rolling, knew the American people were beginning to tune out, to sigh and say, it's just politics again. And that's when she flipped the trap. She stood, approached the witness podium, and read from her folder. Not the subpoena, but a quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." You've heard that before, haven't you, Judge? Dr. King, the man who understood how this country sterilizes outrage through bureaucracy. She turned to the panel, the room now deathly still. I'm not here to argue with a stalling tactic. I'm here to remind this body what we protect when we delay justice. That girl in the file? She's not a redacted name. She's a ghost, and we made her one. The silence hit like thunder. One of the junior Republican members, clearly rattled, whispered something to their aide. Bledsoe blinked but said nothing. Jasmine set the folder down with calm finality. You want delay? Delay the privilege of office? But don't delay the dignity of truth. And for the first time that day, The courtroom wasn't a chessboard. It was a matchbox, waiting to catch. The second day of the hearing began without pleasantries. No gavel. No introductions. Just tension so thick it felt like the marble walls themselves were holding their breath. Jasmine Crockett sat at her table, eyes forward, posture unmoving. In front of her was a single leather binder, sealed with a red ribbon, dramatic. Yes, but earned. Across the aisle, Judge Bledsoe looked less composed. He whispered fiercely to his co-counsel, eyes darting toward the cameras. Something in the air had shifted, and he could feel it. The committee chair gave Jasmine the floor. She stood, calmly removed the ribbon, and opened the binder. I'd like to submit into the congressional record the verified Epstein contact ledger, otherwise known as the Black Book, authenticated by 2 retired FBI forensic analysts and notarized under penalty of perjury. Gasps weren't common in federal hearings, but this time they echoed. Jasmine walked slowly to the digital projector. Slide 1 appeared, a black page filled with names, some redacted, others bold and unmistakable. Then she clicked to the next. Slide. Donald J. Trump appears twice. Once under his own name. Once under the alias D. Trump Palm Mar L. Consistent with cross-reference guest logs from Epstein's Palm Beach property. Dates: January 2002, April 2002. The silence became oxygen. Starved. Bledsoe shot to his feet. Objection. These documents are inadmissible under the terms of sealed federal settlements. They were obtained legally. Jasmine interrupted. Her voice didn't waver. Through whistleblower submission and third-party forensic review. And this body is empowered to conduct oversight when criminal concealment is alleged. She advanced the slides again. Additional aliases. Phone numbers. Initials, all backed by metadata, no longer just theory now. Evidence. The tension in the room cracked like glass. One GOP representative stood and stormed out, muttering into his mic, "This is a circus." But Jasmine didn't flinch. She turned to the chamber and spoke not to the lawyers or the chair, but directly to the camera lens. To America, this is not about politics. It's about a system that protected a predator while a young girl disappeared. And if your instinct is to defend power instead of protect innocence, then maybe you're not here to serve justice. You're here to survive it. A beat passed, then another. The reporter's fingers clacked like rain on keyboards. Social media lit up. Hashtag Epstein Files was trending globally. Hashtag Crockett Black Book wasn't far behind. And in living rooms across America, people began to lean forward, because this wasn't a hearing anymore. It was an unmasking, and Jasmine Crockett had just pulled off the first layer. There are moments in politics when the echo is louder than the act. Jasmine Crockett had just read a name from a dead man's ledger, and the country couldn't unhear it. The hearings weren't over, but the country was already responding like they were. Fox News doubled down, pivoting from defense to offense. Deep state targeting Trump again. New hoax, same goal. Meanwhile, MSNBC's Chiron simply read, Black Book revealed, America reacts, but it wasn't just networks. It was the streets. In Florida, a group of far-right demonstrators descended on a federal building with signs that read, Defend Trump at all costs. In Portland, counter-protesters projected Jasmine's congressional speech across a courthouse wall. If your instinct is to defend power, you're not here to serve justice, you're here to survive it. And in Washington, D.C., Jasmine's office received over 1,200 voicemails in 24 hours. Some were weeping, some were furious. Some were terrifying. Keep digging, Crockett. You're not done. You're next, bitch. My daughter vanished in 2001, I think. I think I saw her in the documents. Tell the truth until it kills them. Marcus stood in the office doorway, holding a new security briefing from Capitol Police. They're advising you wear ballistic protection for the next hearing. Jasmine looked up from her desk, exhausted but clear-eyed. So I'm a congresswoman and a target now? You're a movement. Movements make enemies. She smiled bitterly, then opened a velvet box on her desk. Inside, a string of pearls. Her grandmother's. I'll wear both, she said. Bulletproof vest under the suit, pearls over the top. Marcus blinked. Symbolism? Survival. she replied. Outside the Capitol, metal barricades were reinforced. Protesters clashed in shouting matches so loud the sound bled through the windows of the Judiciary Chamber. Homemade banners read, "Unseal IT all," while others warned, "She's the real traitor." But Jasmine kept walking forward. During a brief break in the hearing, a young intern passed her a handwritten note. Just 4 words torn from a legal pad. "They want a war." She read it, folded it, and whispered to herself, "Then let them watch us fight with truth." That afternoon, she stood before the committee again. Her speech was short. "I am not afraid of their anger. I'm afraid of what happens if we let fear write our laws." Outside, chants grew louder. Inside, eyes narrowed. Sides hardened, and across the political spectrum, something irreversible began to fracture. The MAGA movement had turned inward, some demanding Trump speak, others denying the Black Book's authenticity, still others questioning the loyalty of their own leaders. The base wasn't united anymore. It was bleeding from within. It began, as it always did, with a single post. Truth Social, 3:12 a.m. Est, another witch hunt by the radical left. Jasmine Crockett is a fraud. The so-called Black Book is a fake, but they're scared of me. They should be. When I come back, it'll be for all of them. 12 hours later, the post had been screenshot over 22 million times. Cable news spun into overdrive. CNN brought on linguists. Fox rolled out conspiracy theorists. MSNBC went dark screen with a red banner. Trump threatens retaliation, democracy on edge. But it wasn't the post that detonated the fuse. It was the rally.mar-a-logo, packed. Long red hats. Floodlights cutting through the humid Florida air. ***. Trump stepped onto the stage to deafening cheers. Cheers that didn't know yet whether to celebrate or riot. He paused, soaking it in, then leaned into the microphone. "You know, they said I'd be finished after January 6th. They said prison. They said disgrace. Well, guess what?" He smiled. "I'm still here, and so are you." Roars. "You've all heard what this Crockett woman is saying." Reading. Fake names off fake lists. Trying to connect me to people I've never even met. He paced the stage like a preacher and a prize fighter. But I know what this is. It's not about justice. It's about stopping me, and if they can do this to me, a former president, they can do it to you. He pointed to the crowd, to your families, to your businesses, to your churches. They're not coming for me. I'm just in their way. For a split second, the crowd went silent. Then, thunderous applause. "Should I run again?" he asked, with a smirk. "Should I finish what we started?" The crowd erupted. "Do it! Lock her up! 2028 or civil war." Trump nodded, not confirming, not denying. Just basking, but backstage, not everyone was smiling. In a quiet corridor, Eric Trump turned to Roger Stone and asked the question everyone on that side had been dreading. Is Dad trying to win, or trying to burn the whole thing down? Stone didn't answer. He just lit a cigar. Meanwhile, back in D.C., Jasmine watched the rally on a muted monitor in her office. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just watched. Marcus entered quietly. "He's daring the system to arrest him," Marcus sighed. "Daring us? He wants martyrdom," Jasmine replied. "But I won't give him myth. I'll give him facts." She turned off the monitor and rose from her chair. "Schedule me on CNN, MSNBC, and yes, even Fox. If he wants a public war, I'll give him one. But it'll be fought in daylight, under oath, with receipts." Marcus nodded. "It's about to get loud." Jasmine stepped into the hallway, pearls shining against her neck, spine straight as steel. "Then let the country listen." It was a nondescript manila envelope, no return address, no tracking number. Just a line scrawled in red ink. "You're not wrong. Start with page 14. Jasmine stared at it across her desk as if it might explode. Marcus paced behind her, arms crossed. "You think it's a trap?" She didn't answer. Just slid on a pair of gloves and opened it. Inside, 3 thick sheets of typed names and dates, and a USB drive. Her eyes immediately locked onto one name on page 14, Silas McQuaid, Trump. Finance Committee, Cayman Transfer, May 9th, 2017. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. She grabbed her laptop, inserted the USB, and clicked. What loaded was a nightmare in spreadsheet form, bank routing numbers. Shell corporations, transaction. Memos with chilling notes like, Jones for RN sequels finished, funds cleared. Kushner cover under nonprofit wing, rebrand by Q3. McQuaid laundering using hospital supply invoices, $2.1 million. It wasn't just shady. It was federal racketeering, obstruction, campaign finance fraud. Possibly treason, her hands trembled. Marcus, she whispered, this connects everything. He looked over her shoulder, eyes widening. This is the spine of the Black Book. No, Jasmine said. This is the Black Book. For 2 hours, the room became a war. Room. Jasmine and Marcus printed, sorted, verified cross-references with documents they already had. By midnight, they had a corkboard of over 40 confirmed names, tied directly to offshore accounts, all with timestamps that coincided with political decisions, pardons, and cover-ups, but one stood out. Elijah Carrington, former defense contractor, retired Navy admiral, Trump loyalist, supposedly clean, and yet $3.2 million deposited to his daughter's bakery in Montana. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, mind spinning. We leaked this and the country goes nuclear. We hold it and they call us liars. Marcus stared at her. There's a third option. She looked up. Subpoena Carrington. Live testimony. In front of the American people. Her eyes narrowed. If he lies, he perjures himself. If he tells the truth. Marcus finished. Trump's entire legal firewall collapses. Just then her phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. Careful what you open. Some truths don't want to be known. DC. She didn't flinch. We move forward, Jasmine said. Even if the truth cuts the skin off this whole country. Marcus nodded. Then it's time we let the world bleed a little. 8:42 a.m. Capitol Hill. Office of Records and Citations. The subpoena was drafted in bold language, sharper than usual, invoking emergency oversight under Article 1. Section 5. Elijah Carrington is hereby commanded to appear before the United States Congressional Oversight Panel for a live, on-record testimony regarding financial disclosures, offshore holdings, and federal defense contracts during the Trump administration. Jasmine signed it with a cold, mechanical steadiness. Her hand didn't tremble, but her heart did. Send it to federal marshals, she said. Not email, not courier. Walk it into his house with a badge. Marcus hesitated. This will humiliate him, publicly. That's the point, she replied. Let the media chew on his silence. 12:09 p.m. The Carrington Estate. West Virginia. Admiral Elijah Carrington stood barefoot in his study, clutching the white envelope. His blue eyes scanned the document twice, 3 times. His hand gripped the wood of his desk. God damn it, he muttered. His wife, Meredith, peeked into the room. Another war coming? Carrington didn't answer. He reached for a dusty bottle of scotch and poured it without a word. 1:14 p.m. National media frenzy. Within an hour of delivery, news networks broke the story. Breaking: Congress subpoenas Trump-aligned admiral and Black Book money laundering. Probe: Crockett is aiming for the jugular. Sources close to the case say. Fox News called it political theater. MSNBC called it the first domino. Twitter was melting. Carrington, famously quiet and respected, had never once been publicly accused of wrongdoing. But Jasmine had drawn blood now, and everyone smelled it. 6:42 p.m. Jasmine's office. Marcus entered, holding his phone. He accepted. No lawyer, no delay, he'll testify live? Jasmine leaned back, surprised. He's coming to the slaughterhouse willingly? Marcus nodded. Either he thinks he's clean. Or, she said, he's bringing something. Nuclear to the table. They sat in silence. The air was dense with consequences. Finally, Jasmine broke the quiet. If Carrington cracks, the Trump camp fractures. But if he's rehearsed and evasive, they'll paint this as a witch hunt. Marcus tilted his head. What if he's neither? She looked up. What if, he said slowly, he confesses? 8:03 p.m. Carrington's. Private call, encrypted line. Carrington's voice was gravel. Tell him I'm testifying. No immunity deal, no lawyers, I won't lie. The voice on the other end was panicked. You're making a mistake. You'll burn the whole goddamn house down, Carrington sighed. Then let it burn. He hung up. 10:01 a.m., Oversight Hearing Room, Capitol Hill. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered. Every seat was taken. Jasmine Crockett sat upright at the head of the committee dais. Dressed in charcoal black with a blood-red blouse, her eyes were razor-sharp. This wasn't political theater anymore. This was Legacy. Admiral Elijah Carrington. Entered alone, no legal team, no handlers. He wore his dress uniform, chest heavy with medals. At 73, he still looked carved from steel. The room went still. He took the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. 10:12 a.m., the opening volley. Jasmine stood slowly. No grand gestures. Just a single question. Admiral Carrington, did you authorize or facilitate the transfer of defense contracts to shell corporations operating out of the Cayman Islands? Carrington blinked. A pause. Yes. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters nearly dropped their phones. Jasmine blinked, stunned. She had prepped for deflection, obfuscation, a wall of retired military bravado. But this was raw. Confession? Were those corporations linked to political allies of Donald J. Trump? Carrington nodded. Many were, including some controlled directly by members of his inner circle. 10:23 a.m., Truth Unleashed. Carrington didn't flinch. He listed names, dates, dollar amounts. Lobbyists. He named 2 sitting senators, one former vice president's advisory firm, and a retired general who funneled drone contracts through a fake energy startup in Qatar. It wasn't just corruption, it was orchestration. A parallel government run through offshore wires and quiet nods in Mar-a-Lago hallways. 10:38 a.m., Crockett's pivot. Jasmine steadied herself. Admiral, why now? Why break your silence? He looked up directly at her. Because I watched. The country rot while I stayed quiet. I followed orders I knew were un-American. And now young people like you are the only ones left trying to disinfect the wound. Silence. Then a whisper of awe moved across the room. 10:47 a.m., interruption. Representative Braden Walsh, RTX. A Trump loyalist leaned forward, red with fury. This is a vendetta. This is a disgraced old man clinging to relevance. Carrington cut him off. Sit down, son. You weren't even in uniform when this all went down. I buried friends while you were still Googling stock tips. Laughter erupted. Jasmine smiled, then caught herself. 11:02 a.m., mic drop. Crockett took one last step. Admiral Carrington, do you believe Donald Trump knowingly approved these transactions? Yes. And did he personally profit? Yes. Do you have proof? Carrington reached into his jacket and pulled out a single USB drive. Every email, every wire transfer, every meeting. Will you submit it to this committee? He looked her dead in the eye. Right here. Right now. He placed it on the desk. Cameras flashed. The room exploded in shouted questions. Jasmine sat frozen, her fingers lightly touching the drive like it was a holy relic. 1:12 p.m., the aftermath. CNN was on fire. Fox cut to commercial. Twitter had a collective meltdown. The headline flashed across every screen in America. Carrington confession. Stuns Congress. Trump directly named in defense scheme. And beneath it, another trending phrase. Jasmine Crockett just changed history. 1:37 p.m., Mar-a-Lago. Palm Beach, Florida. The gilded dining hall was unusually quiet. Donald J. Trump sat behind a long banquet table. Half-eaten cheeseburger beside him, eyes locked on the flat screen. Jasmine Crockett's face dominated every major network. Her voice echoed in replay. Did Donald Trump personally profit from these military contracts? Yes. Do you have proof? Every email, every wire transfer, every meeting. He didn't flinch. Instead, he waved toward a trembling aide. Get me Sydney. And tell Eric to shut up and stay off Twitter. This is war. 2:14 p.m., the counter-dash offensive. In the echo chamber of MAGA loyalists, Trump convened a war council. Sidney Rowe, not a lawyer, but a die-hard strategist placed a stack of papers in front of him. We're drafting a formal rebuttal. You'll say the Admiral is senile. That Crockett is running a personal witch hunt. We'll demand a separate investigation into her office. Trump was pacing. No, that's weak. I want fire. I want insult. I want to drag her name through the mud so deep they forget who she is by morning. He paused. Get me Tucker? And call Alon? We need Exxon overdrive? 3:26 p.m. to statement drops from the golden halls of his estate. A statement blasted across his social media platform, Truth Revival, 45th President. Donald J. Trump responds to Crockett's shameful stunt. The hearing today was nothing more than a deep state sideshow led by a third-rate nobody who thinks shouting makes her smart. Jasmine Crockett is a low-IQ blogger in a cheap wig pretending to be a congresswoman. This was a hoax cooked up by bitter losers and washed up traitors like Carrington. I made America strong. They want to tear it down. He signed it in bold. DJT 4:02 p.m. Media whiplash. CNN cut in with Trump calls Jasmine Crockett low IQ blogger. Critics slam sexist attack. MSNBC flashed. Trump goes nuclear. Avoids substance. Calls her a blogger, not a leader. Fox News. Breaking. Jasmine Crockett's accusations fall apart under scrutiny. Trump responds forcefully. Social media became a war zone. #ist and with Crockett trended within 20 minutes. So did #low IQ blogger, used by her supporters ironically. Printed on t-shirts overnight, 4:58 p.m. Back in D.C., Jasmine sat alone in her office. She stared at the headline. Crockett called low IQ blogger by Trump after bombshell hearing. Instead of rage, she smiled. It wasn't weakness, it was confirmation. He was scared. Her aide knocked. There's a reporter from MSNBC outside. Wants to know if you'll respond. Jasmine stood, picked up the flash drive Carrington gave her and held it up. Not with words. With evidence. 6:17 p.m. Jasmine's subtle strike. That night she tweeted just 3 words, proof greater than noise. Attached, a screenshot of the USB drive in evidence lockup. The internet exploded. Even Trump. Loyalists felt the tremor. 7:04 p.m. Fox Prime, New York City. The studio lights hit like heat lamps. Tucker Holt, Fox's top political anchor, adjusted his tie, leaned forward, and opened with the fire. So now we've got Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a woman with a history of grandstanding, accusing a former president of war profiteering. Where's the proof? A flash drive? That could have come from a cereal box. Cue the graphic. Crockett's conspiracy. Tucker sneered into the camera. This is political theater dressed up as national security. What we're witnessing is a coordinated hit job, not an inquiry. But beneath the bravado, something was off. His producers scrambled behind the scenes. The screenshots on Jasmine's Twitter were being verified by independent analysts, and they matched real defense memos never made public. 7:37 p.m. to Newsmax. Blaze TV on. All channels echoed the talking points. Words like hoax, deep state, leftist smear filled the airwaves, but for every claim of fabrication, new leaks emerged. An anonymous whistleblower posted. Redacted contract excerpts. Military procurement officers quietly confirmed. The Admiral's credibility. Even Glenn Greenwald tweeted, if these Crockett files are real, this may be the biggest military grift since Halliburton. 8:21 p.m. The cracks begin on the Daily Caller Live. Conservative host Kara Manning shifted tone mid-broadcast. I've just received confirmation from a former Pentagon official. The emails cited by Admiral Carrington are not fabricated. They were buried in a classified review. We're trying to verify if this implicates then-President Trump directly. The Chiron suddenly updated. Developing Trump military deals under new scrutiny. Manning sighed. I still think Crockett is dangerous. But if this is true, someone's got blood on their hands. 9:10 p.m. The MAGA divide, the online. Base splintered in real time. Hardliners flooded X with hashtags like #Trump did nothing wrong and #Crockett is lying. Center right. Libertarians began sharing the evidence thread Jasmine had posted. Veterans groups. Once stalwart Trump supporters. began asking pointed questions. Why were so many combat units forced to switch suppliers mid-conflict? Who made the final calls, and who got rich? 9:44 p.m., an unexpected ally, Ben Shapiro, rarely swayed by emotion, released a 10-minute emergency segment titled, "This is not nothing." He walked through each document Jasmine's office released and concluded with rare discomfort. "I don't like her politics. I don't like her methods, but I'm a facts guy." And right now, her facts check out. 10:11 p.m. Trump responds again. Back on Truth Revival. Trump fired back. "Ben is a Reno. Fox has always hated me. All fake. Jasmine is a hoax artist." But it didn't land the same way anymore. Not when data analysts, ex-military officials, and former insiders were confirming Jasmine's claims one by one. The spin machine was overheating. 11:02 p.m. Jasmine's silence is loud through it all. Jasmine didn't say a word. No interviews. No tweets, no press conferences. Only one cryptic post at midnight. No caption. No context, but the message was clear. This wasn't the climax. It was the beginning of a reckoning.